Well, Amy, Druhot, welcome to ENTV today. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for having me today.
My pleasure. ENTV today, if you have not had the pleasure of meeting Amy Druhot yet, she was on last summer, almost a year ago. She was being interviewed in a group interview by Kathy Elliott. And since then, you went on and wrote a book called Just Brave It, which I
Yes.
think is a great name. So, for those that don't know you, maybe can we just do a minute on who are you? What are you up to in the world? And let's jump into your book.
Yeah, sure. So in my day-to-day, so my real life, I am the VP of sales for Eastwood Homes, which is a builder on the East Coast. And I'm actually located in Richmond, Virginia. So that is my uh, my passion for my day-to-day life. But my personal passion is empowering women in our industry. And now I hope to extend that outside of the industry. So being in a male-dominated industry in new homes construction, I've kind of found a place in, I created the very first PWB, which is Professional Women in Building Council for the state of Virginia. We've now grown to close to 300 members here locally, which is exceptional, and have had the opportunity to speak to groups of women across the nation. And through that, which is not something I ever intended to do, my background is not what you would expect. I actually was a high school dropout, did not go to college. At the age of 21, was a single mother, worked admin jobs till I got laid off in my late 20s. I actually cleaned houses for a living for about 4 years, and that was just 13 years ago. And so the inspiration behind the book itself was really embracing my story, because I think often we let our shame and our guilt of our past keep us from truly living a fulfilling life. So I wanted to write a book that, one, was an easy reader, because I've not been a huge reader in my life. So I wanted to have it read well for people like myself. But two, I wanted to write the book that I needed to read back when I was cleaning houses for a living, to know that you should never count yourself out, that really your opportunity for growth in the future is what you decide to make of it. And because I chose to just brave it in my life over and over again, unintentionally, now it's very intentionally, I've been able to achieve the things that I am doing today. So that was kind of my story, and what's led me to this place of now writing this book that will actually come out on May 14th.
Wow, what a story. I'm recalling because I remember listening, watching your interview back then, and I think you each had about 15 minutes. The light was on each of you for about 15 minutes in that group interview and hearing some of this. So, how did you start to choose to just brave it? You were said you were doing it unintentionally back then. Now you know, but what, just necessity, desperation? Did you have role models? What was the catalyst?
I think honestly, if and don't get me wrong, I think I have worked with some of the most incredible women throughout my career. But as far as mentorship and having someone that I really looked up to within my industry, there wasn't a lot of that. I mean, I really feel like it was every woman for themselves. And so it became very important to me a couple of years ago. I got involved in a group called the Women's Leadership Circle, which is a all female. It's actually the very first female mastermind group in the new construction industry. And the leader of that group, she's well known. And so I was kind of pushing her for a few years to start this group, because I felt like we desperately needed it in the industry. I desperately needed it. Like, I need a group of women who were just powerhouse women in the industry that I could bounce things off of in a safe space. And so that group finally came together about 3 years ago. And that's really where I saw the growth within me, where that confidence was gained, and I started to really challenge myself. It's interesting to think that uh, 3 years ago, I would have never have wanted to step out on stage in front of a group of people to share my story and to speak. And just last year, I spoke 16 times across the nation. So, it shows that when you are willing to put yourself in situations um, outside of your comfort zone, that's the real opportunity for growth. My entire career, I always said that I faked it till I made it. Because of my background, it really took me projecting confidence and being resourceful and being just using every resource that was available to me in order to be successful. And what I realized recently was I was not faking it till I made it. I was actually braving it till I make it, because isn't that kind of what faking it is? When you're braving something, you're putting yourself in a situation where maybe you're not the expert and you don't really know what you're doing, and you have to step outside your comfort zone and do it anyway. And that truly is what being brave is. It's stepping into a situation where maybe you're not the expert, you don't really know what you're doing, but you choose to step forward and do it anyway. And so I have just started living this mantra of just braving it. And that phrase itself actually came out of an accidental, embarrassing moment that I had as I was preparing to speak to a group of people, not really having not any clue of what I was going to say. And about 2 weeks prior, I went to the grocery store and had a moment in the rain in front of a group of about 12 people, while I announced to people that I was just going to brave the rain. And over the next 45 seconds, I had one of the most embarrassing moments in my entire life in front of these people. So I tell that story when I speak, which yes, it's a funny story, but the reality is that often when we step out and decide to do something different or step out into a storm in front of a group of people, it doesn't always go the way that we plan it, but sometimes we're doing things to show others how to do it and to help others that come behind us to do those things. So the whole idea of just braving it is really getting to a place in your life where you understand truly who you are, not who you are to other people, but not by a title or being a mother or a VP of sales. Those things don't make me who I am, because all of those things involve other people. Who I am is my past stories, my past experiences, and leaning into those, and then really looking at your past stories, which I have two types of stories I like to refer to and talk about in the book. Your who is your foundation stories. So if you think about the foundation of a home, you can physically see it. It's there, it's supports the structure of the home itself. And so your foundation stories are the stories you tend to tell people when you are talking about yourself, why you like something, why you do something a particular way. So you kind of wear them on your sleeve, much like a foundation of a home. You can physically see it. But if you look into those stories, that really helps you define who you are, not who you are to other people, but who you are as an individual. Your footer stories, though, are where you really truly begin to understand your why. So much like the footers of a home, your footer stories go beneath the surface. You can't physically see them from the outside, but they are such an incredibly important part of the structure of the home. And your footers are really the how and the why that the actual home is standing in place. So your footer stories typically are the stories you don't share. It's the stories of guilt and of shame and of trauma, or maybe it's dreams and aspirations that you don't share because you feel too silly to share those. And so in discovering your who, and then also discovering your why, so the impact that you want to make in the world, then if you can discover those two things and then apply the how, which is just braving it, then that is the path to getting to a place where you're living your most fulfilled life. So the book itself breaks down the formula of exactly how you take your past experiences and then apply the just brave it piece of it to then live a life of fulfillment and purpose.
Can we hold it up? You got a one in copy in your hand you can hold up?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do right here.
Awesome. And thanks,
So,
please drop the link after also in the comments that two questions for you. Two
yes.
things I've been throwing around. I'm curious about your thoughts on this. One is I don't ever have problems. All I have is opportunities. And I'm starting to believe that every thing I would call a problem, like when my mom died, I was like, oh, it's a problem. But I was like, I had so much opportunity come out of it. So I'm wondering if problems are actually real, or if that's just a way of looking at opportunities the wrong way. I'd like your thoughts on that, number one. Number two, I'd also like your thoughts on stories, my beliefs. I'm finding the more I hear other people's stories, people that would vote on the other side or on their opposite side of vaccine beliefs as I am, the more I hear their stories, the more I go, well, geez, if I had those stories, those footings, I'd believe the same things they believe. So I'm going, are my beliefs just derived from my story? If so, how can I even trust my beliefs? Because they're subjective to what my story was. My story is, I'm feeling is like the foundational piece that sets a lot of my beliefs. So
Yeah.
beliefs, I'm going, are they just subjective? My beliefs maybe are just subjective to my story. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I guess I'll address first the idea of the problems. Is problems, it's really about your perspective. Do problems really exist, or is it the way that
Mm.
we choose to approach those things? And so I often talk about something that I like to refer to as the Missy Elliott technique. So I believe that in all things in life, that if you are living your life a particular way, or if there is a particular thing in your life that is a problem or it no longer serves you, then it's time to apply what I like to refer to as the Missy Elliott technique. And that's when you put that thing down, you flip it, and then you reverse it. And so I think that when you look at problems from that perspective, when you say, okay, I have a problem, but if how do I put that down? How do I put that problem down and then analyze it and reapproach it and then reverse it, so to make it a positive? I've always been the type of person that when something would go wrong, I would always say, okay, what is the positive here? Like, what is there's a positive in every single problem and every single thing that goes wrong in our lives. If you take a moment to step back and look for the positive, sometimes we don't see it right away. But I do believe that if you take a moment to step away from something that is a problem in your life, there's typically always something good that comes out of it. And even in the moment, I mean, if you really think about the problem itself, or the something, the thing that occurred, it could even be something where you feel like someone wronged you, right? But in some ways, that helps you better understand that individual's perspective. It also can create guardrails for you that potentially you need in your life in order to make sure that you are on the path of fulfillment and purpose for your own self and your own beliefs. So I do believe that problems are an opportunity. Um, I could look back to my past and say it was a problem that, I dropped out of high school early, and that I, didn't go to college, and that I became a young single mother. But with all of those things, I sought out the opportunity. And so people who want to live in a problem mindset will not seek out opportunity. They will continue to stay where they are and look at people who are seeking out opportunity and wonder why it is that they're living the lives that they're living. And so I think if you can get yourself out of that problem mentality and into the opportunity and looking for the positives, uh, that's where you're going to go much further in your life. And then your second question, remind me, I'm sorry, again, exactly what that was.
Well, first of all, you just unloaded on us with that first one. Can we just camp on that for a sec?
Sure,
So
sure.
I'm curious because the more I'm learning about, well, there's lots I'm learning. There's lots I'm still got to learn. And the more I'm learning about life, the more I'm seeing whatever I focus on, I create. Whatever I magnify increases. And so I just attract whatever I look at, literally or metaphorically. So is it is it really is it that? What is your thoughts on this? Is it that it really is an opportunity, or it really is a problem, or is it just how I look at it? And then however I look at it, I create more of that thing.
Oh, I think it's 100% how you look at it. I mean, something can feel like there are real problems. I mean, in our workspaces, there are problems that we have to find solutions to. My why I am good at what I do is because I am a fixer. But like, I mean, that to my core, that is a something that I'm good at. It's something I enjoy doing. It's something that I'm like relentless about pursuing the solution to issues. So I do believe that true issues can potentially exist. I'm trying to think of even an example of that, because now you have me thinking in a different way. Is it really that there are true issues, or is it just the way that we're viewing something? Because you know what, a problem for me could be something that is not at all a problem for you. So it could just be about an individual perspective. And really, overall, I do think outlook on life in general has a lot to do with the way that we move through our day to day and the way that we see things. So, again, I do believe there are true opportunities. I do believe that there could potentially be true problems, but it's all in how you approach those things and how you choose to handle them. I personally, you present me with a problem, I'm like, let's go. I don't know that I even view a problem as a problem because I actually get really excited when there is a problem or an issue in front of me. And I think it's because, again, I call myself a brave expert, and it's not because I'm some, warrior of a person and I'm constantly living in the space of just not being fear. I'm a brave expert because I've spent majority of my life being terrified. I'm terrified on the daily to, even in my day to day,
Hmm.
just with all of the things that we have to carry in this day and age. I tend to feel afraid a lot. And because I feel afraid a lot, I have to choose to be brave all the time. And by being brave all the time, I've gotten to a place where I have become an expert at being brave. So
Hmm.
again, if you're approaching life in such a way that you're choosing to be brave, you're choosing to embrace life as it is in the moment, regardless of what your situation is, then maybe you can get to a place where nothing is truly a problem and nothing is truly an opportunity. It's just about moving towards a life where you feel the most fulfilled and that you're living with purpose. And maybe that's a place where we actually find happiness and peace, you know?
Let's go to high school because I share somewhat. I got booted out of high, I got suspended, booted out, like blah, 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 blah. So do you remember going into a math class or to a science class and there was a problem on the board?
Mhm.
The very fact that there was a problem on the board, we knew that it could be solved. But if
Right.
we hadn't done our homework, so now I'm curious what you think of this, Amy. I've been throwing this around just literally the last 48 hours, okay? 36 hours probably. I'm going, hang on. I was taught, even in school, if there's a problem, it's solvable. Do I have the right information to solve it? Is there such thing as an unsolvable problem? If there is, I want to know what that is. But if there isn't, that means everything's solvable. I just have to have the right information. Wouldn't that, what are your thoughts
Mhm.
on that?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, I feel like there is nothing in life that's unsolvable. There are situations in life that are permanent, right? And so within that, that can feel that that's an unsolvable problem. Let's say, sounds like, if you've lost a parent, I've lost a parent. That is something that is permanent. Like not an opportunity in this lifetime that I can fix not having my father in my life in my day to day. But I do believe that it can be solvable from a place of perspective, that sometimes a problem that feels unsolvable could potentially just be a need for a mindset shift. It's a pivot in your life where you have to view what felt like a problem as something different. So you can't approach it in the same way. And so something that potentially seems unsolvable might be something that is just a permanent thing, but in actuality, you can solve it if you shift your mindset and the acceptance of what the problem or whatever it is that's not now changeable in your life, uh, getting to a place of peace to where you know that it is what it is. So that situation is what it is. I'm going to now recreate a life that does provide opportunity and does provide a place for me to be happy, regardless of that thing that I cannot solve. So, problems itself and the idea of, throwing something on the board, there are so many things I'm sure in this world that I could not even begin to imagine how they could be solved, and there are people out there solving them every day. So, I do think that some things maybe aren't meant for you to solve in your own life, while other people are thriving and solving them in their own. But, when we do get to that place in our own lives as an individual that we are not able to fix or solve something, I do think it's important that we have the flexibility within ourselves to just shift our mindset and create that pivot so that we can get back to a place of feeling um, not disgruntled with life itself.
That's not a good place to be. Okay, let's go to the other one then. So the second one I threw at you. What was the first one was problem? The second one was, do you remember? I wanted to get your
I'm
thoughts
like
on it.
searching for it.
Searching for it. Okay,
It was a
so
good one.
well, I don't remember it, but if it comes to you, so let's talk about your book. What was it
Mhm,
like to actually write a book? Because right after you were interviewed here,
Mhm.
You went and started writing a book and you completed it. What was that experience like?
You know, I had had people because when I would go and talk to groups, I would share my story, parts and pieces, not my full story, because I think that at that point in my life, I was still carrying a lot of the shame of those stories. So, but there's something that's so beautiful about wearing your shame. Like people often say like shame on me or shame on you, that phrase. And I've like recoined that phrase to be shame off me or shame off you. If you display your shame and you share your stories, like there was some insecurity around sharing my stories within my book. The book itself has content that's created around my stories, but I share a lot of stories that I, up until that point, had never shared with anyone. And there's this insecurity or the imposter syndrome that sets in when all of a sudden you realize that the stories you've been writing in the coffee shop on Saturday morning had been ordered by over 1,000 people, and they were all going to be reading it. That to me, you don't think about that aspect of it when you're reading a book, but anyone who reads the book and says, well, I can't believe she did this, or I can't believe she made that mistake. I'm like, yeah, I know, girl. I told you. I told you I was the one who did it. So it really kind of took the shame or the guilt that I've felt with regards to decision I've made in my life and really took that off of me because the whole idea of sharing it was to help other women who had been in the same situation. Now, the book itself I wrote, the subtitle is A Some Nonsense Guide for Women Who Want to Live a Brave and Fulfilling Life. The book itself was written for women. It men can just brave it too. So I've had several men buy the book and are anxious to receive it and read it. I sent it out to a few men who have read it and loved it and got a lot of things from the book itself. But I wrote it specifically for women because it is what my heart is pulled towards is working with women and empowering women and encouraging and mentoring and supporting other women. But everyone kept saying you should write a book, you should share your stories. And I started to read a book that's like a New York Times best-selling book, and it was written in the voice of the individual who had written it. And it was the first time, and I only read 3 chapters, if I'm being honest, because I'm not a huge reader. But in reading it, I was like, wow, wait, if she can write this book, I can write a book. I wanted the book to feel conversational. I wanted people, everyone who has read it so far, most of them have read it within 24 hours. So that, if someone sat down and read it all the way through, I had one person who told me they read it in 3 hours straight. But the idea is for it to just you just very easily move through the content and through the stories within the book. Um, and so when I started writing it, I started writing my stories. And so really I started at like chapter 3 or 4. I didn't start at the beginning because I wasn't quite sure exactly what direction I wanted to go. But because people kept asking me to share my story and to write a book, I thought I would start there. And then the content itself started to evolve and build around it. I actually went through such an incredible process of understanding um, my why and the impact that I wanted to make in the world through writing this book because I really thought, a lot of times people talk about having a why, which to me, if I'm being honest, I felt that was super outdated and cheesy. And then it was understanding through this process that your why power is greater than your willpower. And so if you can, people say all the time, oh, well, Amy, you have incredible willpower because you are so disciplined. My willpower has nothing to do with it. That's so overrated. It's my why power. It's understanding the impact that I want to make in this world that helps me to be disciplined, helps me to continue to level up my life and to continue being relentless in the pursuit of the things that I want. And so I thought my why was brave because if I had $1 for every time I used the word brave over the last 2 years, I mean, I'd be giving the book away instead of selling it. So I thought for sure that was what it was. When I started writing the book, that's what I thought it was. It completely changed by the time that I was done writing the book, because after going through the process and the formula of what I was writing, I was able to actually recognize that the brave was the how, it was not the why. And so what I'm hoping is that when other people read the book, that they can better understand their impact why and the why that they want to make in the world, and be able to tap into that why power so that they will not compromise when it comes to setting boundaries or saying no to things. I was such a yes person before this book, where I was just committing to things all over the place with no rhyme or reason, because I was, and then I was spreading myself too thin. So I wasn't being effective enough in the places that I really wanted to be effective. Understanding the impact that I wanted to make gave me the ability and the permission to be able to say no thank you to other people, and say no thank you to relationships that were no longer serving me, so that I could stay laser focused on the impact that I want to make in this world. And I think that that will continue to benefit me, as this evolves and we see where this goes. But yeah, I mean, writing the book itself was such an incredible process, because you think when people sit down to write a book that they're an expert in what they're about to write about. And I was in no way, shape, or form an expert. I was literally going through the process and living the words of the book as I was writing them. And I think that's what makes it so impactful.
Amazing. Okay, well, let's go lastly to it came back to me, Amy, story beliefs.
Yes.
Do you
Yes.
think what you believe is has been influenced by your story? And if so, how much?
So I do. I believe very much that, and I even talk about it within the book, that your past stories predict your future. So the things that we're experiencing today, this conversation does have the ability to impact my future, impact your future. So the past often predicts the future. And you and I could live the exact same life, or go through the exact same experience, but it catapults us in totally different directions. So the individual within the story, that's what makes every story, every situation so uniquely our own, because no one experiences the same things the same ways. And it is within those past stories. And I am all about understanding and embracing your past stories, because um, once you get to a place where you can truly do that, it frees you of so many things. And I do think that stories are incredibly important. I do think that it shapes who you are. Stories about past individuals. I mean, you think about so many things about who we are as an individual is shaped by stories in the past that actually have to do with other relationships within our lives. And those can be things we adapt to because we find favor with those things within those individuals, but also things that we intentionally move away from because we see those things in other people. So I do think that stories definitely, uh, whether we recognize it or not, they influence the way that we feel, the way that we think, our viewpoint in life. And that's why I think it's so important that we do take the time to look back into our past stories, because I think that's where we discover the most about ourselves.
Hmm, I love it. Thank you for this. This has been amazing. And I'm going through what you're just describing right now. I'm looking at a lot of my beliefs that I've held for a long time, and I'm going, uh-oh. The more I hear other stories and then see what they believe, I go, oh man, their beliefs are tied to their story. My beliefs are tied to my story. So I'm going, everything I think I believe, I'm questioning it now because I'm going, I think I just believe it largely because of my story, because of my background, not because it's true, but
Well, and I
because,
think too,
yeah.
I do believe that it does give you the ability to also have grace for other people. Like you and I could feel very differently about something, but in understanding that it's your stories that have shaped you to believe the way that you believe, hopefully that does gets us to a place where we can actually have grace for others and their beliefs, because we have to understand that it was their unique stories and their life that got them to the place that they are. And I feel like if we could all look at it from that perspective, we could probably all get along a little bit better and have a little bit more respect for one another. So,
I'll tell you a story I heard when the Israel and Palestine thing was going on, or sorry, when Israel was invaded, it was last summer, those people came in and whatever happened, not the Palestine thing, but they came across the border and they murdered a bunch of Israelis. This news thing was shown. There was three guys captured from Taliban, wherever it was, and they were interviewing one of them. And they said, why did you do this? You were shooting up men and women and children. Why did you do this? And the guy, he was just talking. He's like, well, they told us that that these people are all terrorists and we need to come in and shoot them all or else they're going to come and kill us. And the guy's like, are you serious? That's why you came into this? He's like, and you could tell he was being honest. He goes, yeah, like they told us they're terrorists, so we better come and get them first. And then I proceeded to, he got to, what would your dad think of what you just did? And the guy started breaking down. And it was just like, you could see like how much story shapes beliefs. When someone
Mhm.
I thought I'd want to hate on camera because of what the news said they did, and I believe it was done, but I felt empathy. I was like, oh my gosh, if I had that soil, that story, what would I be thinking is true? So I
It's
love what
true.
you, yeah.
Yeah, I think that human is human. Like we're all human, which makes us all super weird. Like we're just all human and we're all just doing the best we can. And everything around us is shaping our lives. And if you picked you or I up and you place us someplace else, we could be totally different people. I think that if we can choose, and I know it's very difficult, but to choose love and compassion and to not assume that we know. I can't possibly begin to understand the life that you have lived and the road that you have had to take and for your life. And it's not mine to understand. You know, I have lots of stories I could share with regards to, I mean, I am a mother of two gay children, and I grew up in the church. And for me, that was something that I know not everyone understands my approach to it, but I 100% know that God does not make mistakes, and my children were made perfectly. And at the end of the day, I believe that what I was called to do was to love them. And so I choose love. I will forever choose love because, I love my children. I believe they were made exactly as they were supposed to be. And at the end of the day, what I know is that I was asked and I was given them to love them. So I think that if we could all approach life from the standpoint of that we don't always understand and we are not some great and almighty beings. We are human, and if we could choose love and come from a place of love, and that's where we start, then we would all finish off in a much better place. So,
Boom, mic drop. Great
yes.
interview. ENTV today. This is Amy Druhot. Check out her book, Just Brave It. She's going to drop links after and reach out to connect with her. She's onto this speaking thing now. Well, who knows where she's on to next. Thanks for coming on to ENTV today and being shining some light here, Amy. This is a real joy to have this conversation and listen to your thoughts today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll end it here, everyone.